let's talk about Babylon, but maybe not the story you're thinking of. We all know the legend, but today we're diving into something else. Its complete and total annihilation in the 7th century BC, and its incredible comeback. This is a story of defiance, absolute destruction, and ultimately, revenge. To really get Babylon, you have to start with the legend, right? The Greek historian Herodotus painted this picture of a city that sounds almost impossible. I mean, imagine a wall so wide that 4 chariots could race on top of it. This was the image that stuck through history, a symbol of just insane power and grandeur.
Yeah, that's the postcard version, but the grand legend wasn't the reality around 700 BC. Not even close. The city that would become this world wonder was at this point actually living in the shadow of a much bigger, badder power. So what was really going on?
Well, despite its proud history, Babylon was a subject city. It was a restless and honestly pretty rebellious part of the mighty and brutal Assyrian Empire. Think of it like a piece on a much larger chessboard, constantly trying to wiggle out from under the rule of a king it just refused to accept. Okay, so here's the roadmap for this wild ride. We're going to see Babylon go from being under Assyrian rule to being literally wiped off the map. Then, it claws its way back to independence, and finally, the shocking fall of its oppressor. It is a total roller coaster, so let's start with their first big move. You know, every great comeback story seems to have that one moment, that big, risky first step. For Babylon, that step was trying to build an alliance against its Assyrian masters. But it came with this chilling warning about the future. So around 700 BC, the Babylonian king, a guy named Baladan, sends out feelers. He sends his ambassadors to another kingdom that's also fed up with Assyrian rule, Judah. The plan is simple. Let's team up. The king of Judah, Hezekiah, is so excited by this idea that he gives the Babylonian envoys the grand tour, showing off his entire treasury, his armory, everything. It's a classic, look how strong I am, you definitely want me as an ally move. But, oh man, this display of pride completely backfires. The prophet Isaiah confronts Hezekiah with this absolutely shocking prophecy. He basically says, you showed the Babylonians everything you have? Great. One day, they're going to come back and take it all, and your own descendants will be servants to their king. What a stunning twist. Your potential ally is just your future conqueror in disguise. Well, that alliance never really got off the ground. Instead, Babylon just kept up its cycle of rebellion against Assyria. And finally, the Assyrian king Sennacherib, he just decided he'd had enough. He wasn't going to conquer Babylon again. He was going to erase it. And listen to this. These aren't just descriptions from some historian. These are the king's own words. It's a mission statement. Sennacherib didn't just tear down the city. He diverted canals to literally flood the ruins, turning the world's greatest city into a muddy field. He wanted to make sure that the site of the city might not even be remembered. And just like that, in 689 BC, Babylon was gone. Physically and symbolically wiped from the face of the earth. For all anyone knew, its long, proud story was completely over. So this brings us to the core question of this whole story. I mean, when you've been so utterly destroyed, when your enemy has literally turned your home into a swamp, how do you even begin to come back from that?
Incredibly, they did. Babylon came back. And its return wasn't just about rebuilding walls and houses. It was the rebirth of an idea, and it was fueled by decades of resentment that would eventually explode into one final, successful rebellion.
Now, the first step toward this rebirth came from the last place you'd expect, the destroyer's own son. Sennacherib's successor, Esarhaddon, did a complete 180 on his father's policy. Maybe it was to calm the region down, or maybe he was genuinely afraid of ticking off Babylon's gods. But whatever the reason, he started the slow process of rebuilding the city. Babylon had a second chance. So, decades pass. The city's restored, but it's still under Assyrian control, just simmering with resentment. And then comes 626 BC. This is the year. The Babylonians see an opening, and this time they take it. The man who led this charge was a local leader named Nabopolassar. He masterminded a successful rebellion, kicked the Assyrians out for good, and declared himself the first king of a brand new, independent Babylonian kingdom. Now, this wasn't just another revolt. This was the foundation of an empire. And this is where the story gets really good, because a free Babylon wasn't just happy to be free. Nabopolassar had a much bigger goal in mind. He didn't just want to survive Assyria, he wanted to destroy it. The whole power dynamic in the region just gets flipped on its head. The Assyrian Empire, once the undisputed superpower,
was now facing a serious new alliance. Nabopolassar's Babylonia joined forces with another rising power, the Medes, and together they actually had the muscle to challenge their former master head-on.
Their plan was simple and absolutely devastating. First, make the alliance. Then, go straight for the heart of the Assyrian Empire, its capital city, Nineveh. The thinking was, if you take out the capital, the whole empire will crumble. And in 612 BC, they did it. The combined armies of the Babylonians and the Medes laid siege to Nineveh, captured it, and burned it to the ground. The great oppressor, the empire that had dominated the entire region for centuries and had personally erased Babylon, was now suffering the exact same fate.
The turnaround is just astonishing. In less than a century, Babylon goes from being a muddy field to an empire killer. It literally rose from its own ashes to burn its former master to the ground. And this incredible act of revenge is what set the stage for Nabopolassar's son, a guy you've probably heard of, Nebuchadnezzar, to build the legendary city we all remember today. It really leaves you wondering, are empires born out of ambition, or are they forged in the fire of revenge?